Welcome to ENT student for a discussion on role of speech and language in ENT head and neck as a briefing.
Introduction. Swallowing and communication are two activities that as humans we take for granted. These behaviors are far from perfunctory. They are also both highly coordinated and pleasurable. They are ways of being able to express and share enjoyment.
While eating, we have the concept of swallowing. The concept of swallowing is very important, and communication is by means of verbal communication. That is also very important, but sometimes given less importance during the counseling of the patient, which is not correct. So they are perfunctory, they should have their own importance, and then they are highly coordinated and pleasurable activity. You should be able to express, share and enjoy the concepts.
For any patient who is limited in their ability to communicate and swallow, social events and in particular celebrations have to be coped up within novel and frequently significantly adapted ways.
So adaptation is something which is very important, which is done by with the help of speech and language pathologist. So we should keep it in mind as a part of multidisciplinary team working. It will help us in swallowing and then and participating in social events and especially celebrations to be coped up with adaptation, new adaptation.
An outsider or even those familiar with the patient do not easily identify many of the symptoms or feelings associated with the changes that the HNC patient has to tolerate.
We have to understand about the symptoms and feelings of the patients. It is not only physical or physiological, it is also psychological. There are many domains in this to be understood.
The patient in their social environments, should they still choose to try and still be a part of them, may well have to suppress emotions of loss and frustration as family and friends tell them how well they look and how well they are coping.
So it is a psychological domain that is very important in this issue.
The assessment and prediction of swallowing and communication abilities for an individual patient is complex. It is part of the team's responsibility to describe and translate in terms that the patient and their family will understand the current and future effects of the cancer or treatment on the patient's ability to carry on with their life.
It is a complicated process as we know, and then we should make the patient understand and make the family also involved in the counseling sessions, and we should know about the current effect and future effects of this cancer or treatment of the cancer and ability to carry in their future life.
Specifically because the anatomical areas that may be most threatened are so involved with swallowing and communication, there is a need as part of clinical trials for these functions to be evaluated.
As we have already seen, swallowing and communication, that is by means of this larynx and this pharynx, should keep it in mind, and evaluation has to be done prior to the surgery.
Clinicians find it difficult to answer accurately patients' inquiries as to how they are likely to be affected by the recommended treatment long term. Members of the multidisciplinary team are aware how differently head and neck cancer patients present with their symptoms.
So we should all have the concept of this. So we should have a liaison with the speech and language pathologist so that we can handle these issues.
Two patients who may clinically have a similar site and size of tumor can react emotionally and behaviorally very different to the diagnosis and management of their disease. The results of any assessment may also not truly reflect the patient's function within their daily life.
So no two patients are similar, they behave emotionally and behaviorally different even though same site and same size of the tumor. So you should individualize the patient, and especially to the diagnosis and management, it should be tailor made. As we know, for every patient it is different, and that should reflect in the function within their daily life, how effectively they can use it in their daily life post operatively or post radiotherapy or post chemotherapy should be kept in mind.
A patient with little impairment may have poor function and vice versa. Patients' illness perceptions when diagnosed can explain some of the variants of the quality of life data that are collected.
So it is the quality of life that matters the most after treatment. You should keep in mind whether they might be having a little impairment, but the functional outcome may be a very bad thing. or functional outcome may be little, but there can be a large tumor that can be there. So it depends upon the patient.
While swallowing and speech are a part of the domains that are measured, there is also an awareness that patients adjust and change with their attitudes over the course of time, so that despite similar function reported by the patient, there is a decrease in the perceived difficulty in swallowing a year after treatment.
Two things that are important here are swallowing and speech. So they will adjust accordingly in the course of the time about their attitudes about these two things, and similar function is reported by the patient. There is a decreased perceived difficulty in swallowing after a year of treatment. So the perception of the difficulty is something which is different. So as the time goes on, they change their perception.
As members of the team, it is important to remain receptive to these changes and support the patient as they try to maintain what in their terms as an acceptable level of quality of life. The use of disease-specific quality of life assessments have been reviewed. They allow patients at an individual level to score their specific symptoms, which must then be acted upon at a clinical level.
So what could be the acceptable quality of life, you should keep in mind, and then disease specific quality of life has to be measured, have to be assessed and to be reviewed, and to score the specific symptoms. What are the specific symptoms and what should be acted upon at a clinical level also should be kept in mind.
Such information can help inform and shape the goals of the speech and language therapist. Inevitably, as a result of the site and effect of the diagnosed tumors, SLTs working with HNC patients are likely to have the opportunity to assess and help patients with their dysphagia and communication needs.
That is specifically done by the speech and language therapist, SLT, and they will be working on the dysphagia and communication needs of the patient. So number one is dysphagia, number two is verbal communication needs of the patient.
The Improving Outcomes Guidelines, produced by the National Institute for Clinical Excellence, recommended that as part of the MDT, SLTs should meet and assess patients pre-treatment.
So before the treatment itself, the patient should be sent for speech and language therapist. So even prior to the treatment, pre-treatment analysis is very important.
At whatever stage the therapist first meets the patient, it is important that they are able to assess the communication and swallowing symptoms accurately and have an opinion as to whether there is a way of improving the status of the patient with reference to two fundamental areas of life and function.
So once again, the same thing, assessment of number one communication, number two is the swallowing. They should be done accurately, and whether there can be a chance for the improvement of both these two things, that is communication and swallowing, and which are the fundamental areas of life and function.
What the research says is, as clinicians looking for information with specific reference to swallowing and communication, it soon becomes apparent that there are only a small number of papers that make reference to these functions. Where clinical trials have been conducted and swallowing measured, they have been described as crude and non-standardized.
So measurement of swallowing is still a crude and non-standardized method. So we should keep an eye on the swallowing and communication abilities of the patient.
The randomized control trial methodology, cause and effect, is difficult to apply to this population. The more complex the topic, the less amenable it is to systematic review because of the multiple comparisons, range of treatments, and outcomes that are studied.
So we should know that the cause and effect that will help in a randomized control trial is not very much helpful in this particular scenario.
The heterogeneous nature of the patients and the interaction of some of the effects have been reported. One needs to be mindful that much of the early data did not report on baseline pre-treatment information, which means it is difficult to distill what may be a disease effect as opposed to a treatment effect.
So the diseases in head and neck are mostly heterogeneous. That is the one reason for difficulty in understanding these things. And what should be the pre-treatment information? This could not be founded by most of the studies. And whether it is a disease effect that is causing to the problem or treatment effect that is causing to the problem. That is why pre-treatment is a must for most of the conditions. Pre-treatment analysis is a must.
What is encouraging to note is that the measuring of quality of life and function are being seen as publishable endpoints alongside mortality statistics. For clinicians, informing patients on the likely outcome of their speech and swallow needs to be carried out at an individual level.
It's not like a comparison, always see for the individual level about the speech and swallowing. So now coming about the swallowing mechanism and what is the core of this topic about the speech and swallowing, we are going to see them.
The normal swallow. Swallowing is a complex and involves cranial nerves, muscles that are innervated by them, transporting a liquid or solid bolus from the oral cavity through the pharynx into the esophagus to the stomach.
So once the food has to reach from the oral cavity in between the lips, from the level of tongue till the level of larynx, it has to go. Larynx has to close, and then later on larynx has to go upwards and forwards, and then it has to go to the level of brachopharyngeal sphincter at the level of C6, and then it has to go to the level of esophagus, and then it has to go to the level of stomach. So this is all that is happening when the food is transferring from the level of mouth till the level of stomach. So it involves a lot of cranial nerves, and it is a complex process. Cranial nerves are involved, muscles are involved, liquid bolus or solid bolus, that is the concept that is involved, oral cavity, pharynx, and esophagus, stomach. So oral phase, pharyngeal phase and esophageal phase, these are the three phases of swallowing. So based on understanding of physiology of